Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a special meeting of the St. James North Branch of the Barbados Labour Party. My name is Marianne Burnham. I am your host, MC, for this afternoon. Before I do anything more, I'd like to invite MP of St. Lucie, Mr. Peter Phillips, up to bless the event.
Good evening, all. Shall we stand? Bow our heads in prayer. Barbados, to this constituency, dear God, I pray, Father, for our party leader. I pray
Deputy Prime Minister Santia Bradshaw, Ministers of Parliament, representatives, outgoing former MP for St. James North, Edmund Hinson, members of the St. James North Executive, members of the Barbados Labour Party, friends, media. Welcome to a special meeting of the St. James North branch of the Barbados Labour Party. My name is Marianne Burnham. I am your MC for this evening. At this time, I will invite Ms. Christina Haynes, President of the St. James North branch, to do the official welcome.
Deputy Prime Minister Sandra Bradshaw, General Secretary Dr. Jerome Walcott, members of the National Executive Council, constituents, members of the Barbados Labour Party, good evening. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you here to St. James North as we celebrate the work and service of a man, great of heart, but short in stature. This evening, we come together as one family to recognize and express our heartfelt thanks for someone who, at each turn, has truly gone above and beyond to serve this constituency and the wider Barbados. This is what has brought each of us here today. Mr. Hinson, your unwavering commitment, tireless efforts, and genuine care for the people of St. James North have been commendable and memorable. Today we say thank you, as you leave your indelible mark on our hearts in this community. Thank you for your dedication to the disabled and vulnerable in this constituency. You advocated for all Barbadians during your tenure, embracing Barbados as one, as you saw the challenges here and sought to enact change wherever you may roam throughout this island. We extend our gratitude to your Clarkson Foundation for hosting impactful soft skills programs such as the Life Skill Program and the Parenting Program, which aim and equip unemployed youth in the St. James North with the knowledge and tools they need to seek employment. We are equally thankful for the parenting classes, especially important in times like these, as they offered parents a safe space to share, learn, and grow, to raise responsible young people from a more mature perspective. Thank you. Thank you for making sure our livelihoods as we venture in our daily lives in this community were intact, be it by roadworks, the traffic lights in Westmoreland, sponsoring sports teams, individuals, youth, and families at risk, along with other community activities. I assure you, your efforts have not gone unnoticed, and today we applaud you for your stewardship. As I sat in Parliament on Thursday, listening to your colleagues share memories of you, one thing stood out to me. Nearly all of them recall receiving early morning calls from you, and I recall my first experience of this. You were planning the first life skill program and asked me to meet you at 7 a.m. to help identify persons who could benefit from it. Of course, I said yes. But in the back of my mind, I assumed you meant 7 p.m. The day before, you reminded me, and sure enough, you meant 7 a.m. From that morning, if I ever had any doubts about your commitment and dedication to the people of St. James North, they were truly completely erased. From dusk till dawn, you worked tirelessly. You made it seem so easy. And believe me when I say, I finally understood the saying, the early bird catches the early worm. Now, in my professional role as a social worker, I wake up just as early as you, even with late nights. I can attest it is not an easy task. Without asking, so many constituents, branch included, have shared their sentiments on your journey about Mr. Edmund Hinson. My family, the Haynes family, has been extremely grateful to you for your support. And in her absence, the Vice President, Carla Applewhite, sends her heartfelt best wishes to you, Mr. Hinson, on behalf of the Adams and Applewhite family from St. James North. She also sends a quote that we all agree embodies you. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, farm more, and become more, you are a leader. John Quincy Adams. Sir, on behalf of the St. James North, the St. James Riding Strong, the Northern Zone, we, the Barbados Labour Party, gather here today in thought, word, and deed, offer best wishes to you on your next chapter. We extend our sincerest gratitude to your family for leading us as our champion. May we never forget you for a job not just well done, but done with integrity, humility, and heart. Thank you, Mr. Hinson, for your service. Yes, you do. On behalf of the branch and the executive, we would like to present you with this small token of appreciation, and we hope that you find good use for it. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Christina. That was a fitting tribute to Mr. Hinson, who is a lawyer, a lion, was a Minister of Parliament, parliamentary representative. Mr. Hinson has represented St. James North for several years and has given his time and his energy to the betterment of the people in the constituency and beyond. From his personal development programs to his gift vouchers at Christmas to his birthday calls, Mr. Hinson has reached out and shown in many ways that he cares. We are thankful to have had such representation over the years, and we wish him every success in his future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Hinson. There's another person that would like to give a tribute to Mr. Hinson, and that is Miss Gretel Smith. She is a person very close to his heart, some person that has supported him over the years, some person that, the person that always nominated him in the 3 terms that he's been standing in this role. She's the person that was there at nomination time. She's the person that put down her name. I want you to welcome Miss Gretel Smith.
Thank you. Yes, I want to say a very good evening to everyone that's here. Deputy Prime Minister Sandra, God bless you. I have you here this afternoon. And I want to say that my name is Gretel Smith. I am from the First Avenue, Stratton, St. James. I am one of the members of St. James North. I married to Mr. Luton Smith, and today is 50 years of my anniversary. I had 5 children, but God called one home, still more permanent, and I have 4 this afternoon. And I want to tell you, I won't be nowhere this afternoon different to be here. And I want to bring greetings from my apostle, Dr. Lucille Beard. And she says that she loves you, and she always keep praying for us and praying for the parliament ministers this afternoon. If I want to even tell you, if I know it, I will have to be here. I want to tell you a few words, and only a few words I would like to say about time is against us. This afternoon, Edmund Gregory Hinson, he is a man, a whole man. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of truth. He's a man I could depend on. I met Edmund Hinson through Royal Eastman. At the time was my MP for St. James North. And when he gave Edmund to me, I was pleased. Edmund, I had a bond together. And we still have the bond, you know, Eddie? We still have the bond together. Don't care what time I call Edmund. If he's on the island, he makes sure to call me, Gretel, what happened? He called me Gretel, what happened? I said, Eddie, I can't get away St. James North. He said, you catch it? I tried to catch it, but I can't catch it. And that time, I don't move unless I have my paper and my pen. Can I help? You can't help. Call Edmund. Sometimes, you know, I laugh, and then I say, Kadir, let me talk. And we come together, the person and I will come together, or the residents will come together, and we will then solve. I call Eddie, but he can't get away. Tell you, Gretel going to take tomorrow. And he never get vexed. And you know one thing that stood out with me, Edmund know everybody in St. James North birthday. Woman, boy, child, or girl. But when it comes to my one, it's special. Because when I sit down and hear good evening, and when I look at Eddie, going to be there. And if he bring, let me tell you when to send me right. All the bags, I have certain bags. Not, he buy them, Eddie and his wife make sure he get bags, scarf, and everything. And Eddie could tell anybody, when I have my birthday bash, everything meant to money, Eddie walking through. And he coming through, if not even if it's in a bottle of water, a bottle of Coke, but he come in. I could depend on Eddie for anything at all, any hour. Eddie and me never had a rough word yet. When I'm weary and I want to talk, I call Eddie, what's going on? And we going to talk and we going to laugh. But I got a secret. And only me, he got a secret. And Beverly, is she here? No. Beverly said, man, you could only one can harm me is you, Gretel.
No, everybody got a secret.
Everybody. I don't know. Eddie, Eddie, should I say that? Or instead of ready. Well, come on, come on. Can't go back in. But Eddie, I want to tell you, Eddie was there for me through thick and thin. And I'm going to tell you, on the 21st of August, Eddie showed me he was more man than a man then. I was home one morning, and my daughter passed away. And I called Eddie and said, Eddie, Deborah gone. He said, Gretel, no, I want to hear the nonsense this morning from you. And he didn't believe. When I started to cry then, Eddie realized that something happened. When I got here, what happened? Eddie tell me, I saw, but I thought it was an accident. 2 tools, Eddie was there. Eddie come and take his telephone out. And he telephone button, he called and said, listen, I want she moved now. In 2 minutes, she did gone. We had the funeral, Eddie came. Eddie sit down in that church. And Eddie hold up his head yet. Eddie, you had to hold up yet? Eddie come every evening, every night. What you want? Can I help? What you do? Can I help? When I stand up on the floor, Eddie stand up on the floor. When Eddie stand in the chair, Eddie stand in the chair. When I drink sweet water, Eddie drinks sweet water. Biscuit, Eddie eat biscuit. He never left me out. So it'd be very only fair of me this afternoon to come to express Eddie behavior. He goodness stories me and all the people that can talk this afternoon and have a conscience. Eddie worked tirelessly hard in St. James North. He fight for St. James North. He fight for road. I remember, don't care about people going down, and I had a tire to call me, Dad, Edmund Hinson, my tire blew out. You know, Eddie, you fought. You do a good work. Eddie, continue to be good to do what you did. And I want to tell you this evening, Eddie, you're the treasure. From the time that Ron Eastman put you in my house, I wanted you to be there. And I love you. And I love you with everything in me. Last, but is Beverly here? Beverly? Used to be your hair talking to me. Your name? Oh, you know that? The one nobody could harm me? Is he with you? Well, let me the war to see me between me and you. Yes, and I told you this afternoon, girl, we don't leave me. Eddie is my heart. And I ain't regret knowing Eddie. I know Eddie, and from me, Eddie, we bond together, we laugh together, we talk together, we do everything together. And I want to tell you this afternoon, Eddie, you retire, but you know my numbers, and I know your numbers. To Mr. Shad Blackman, I ain't calling you Mr. Blackman, Mr. Blackman, that's Shad. Eddie tell me call you a great Eddie, and they calling you that. Don't be downhearted. Don't be downhearted. Don't get distracted. Don't go to there. Hold on, stand up. What I did for Eddie, what did do for you, as long as God give me length and breath, I am behind you. When I was 18 years old, I was on Barbados Labour Party platform speaking for colonial cry as a reporter and sirs. And one of my people said, just coming from Spring said to me, you can remember when you get and say, if you don't work for the cry, you will rise. So I want to tell you this afternoon, I want to thank everybody for coming this afternoon. And Eddie, God bless you, and I thank you. And if you step out, I have at my church this evening a big Easter production, so you have to be there. If the pastor don't see me, she's not going to feel well. Thank you, Eddie, and thank you all for having me and listening to me. God bless.
As you can see, Eddie had, oh. Take a picture, yeah. Eddie with his favorite girl. All right. Well, thank you very much for your tribute, Ms. Gretel Smith, Eddie's #1 fan, Beverly's competition. We are her sentiments represent how a lot of us feel about Eddie and the work he's done in this constituency. And again, I want to say to Eddie, thank you. Thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Sandra Husbands, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, to come up and say a few words. Ms. Husbands was on the road all day with us. We were training from this morning. She hasn't gotten home yet. She's still here, and this speaks to a lot of people who are here. You know, we were training all morning, on the road today, and now we're here, so, you know, it represents how we are approaching this season. Sandra Husbands.
Thank you so very much, MC. Eddie, I greet you. I greet you as a colleague, as a sister, as someone who has admired your career in politics and what you have done. This evening, ladies and gentlemen, you heard a story of love. Love between a representative and his constituents. And that does not happen by chance. This constituency has been a Barbados Labour Party seat for almost all of its time, only moved once. That is not an accident. That happens when you have good MPs serving a people in such a way that they don't want to go anywhere else. So one MP to the next MP to the next MP, and Edmund Hinson has followed in the tradition of the MPs for St. James North, and he deserves a hand for that. We would not be standing here had it not been for the tremendous work that Edmund has done. And I want to share a little bit of my experience with Edmund as a colleague MP. You have heard of the work that he has done, but I want to say to you that Edmund did not wait until he became an MP to start to serve people. He was serving people before he got into politics. That's a man who comes to politics with a heart for people. That is Edmund Hinson. There are people who wait until they get into politics to try to find something to do. Eddie came with a long line behind him of accolades for the work that he has done on behalf of those who are in need and those who are in need of assistance. And this is why, as the people of St. James North encountered Eddie, they found a genuine heart, not a put-on heart. And he is an example for all of us who want to be in politics and who want to walk with the constituency. This is the heart that is needed here. My experience with Edmund as a colleague, I remember Eddie would call me. And I remember the first time he called, I was surprised. He said, Sandra, there is a lady in your constituency. This is her name. This is her background. This is what she needs. I want to recommend to you that you go and you find her and engage her. And then Eddie called me back to see if I went. There are people who, as long as it's not at them, as long as it's not their constituent, they're not concerned. Not Eddie. Eddie's commitment is not only to the people of St. James North, he has a commitment to people across the country and a commitment to the Barbados Labour Party. You could not want better. You could not want better. Eddie has been an exemplar of dedication and commitment. We take for granted calling everybody on their birthday every day, but let me tell you something. That is a work of determination and discipline. That is not easy. When you have 7,000 or 8,000 constituents, all of them must have a birthday every year, you know. And by the time you divide by 365 days in a year, you're talking about having to call at least 20, 30 people every day. That takes dedication. And that is an example of someone who lays down their life to make someone's special day a special occasion. And I want to salute you for that. Many of us are seeking to emulate and to reach that level of being able to do that every single day. In addition to that, there is no MP that is more affable than Eddie. He is warm. Eddie is not aggressive. He's thoughtful about how he says things to you or how he shares with you. But Eddie is also a fighter. If you misread Eddie and think that because he is affable, that he's soft, he's not. This man is a warrior. It is just that he does not come out loud and carrying on. He is deadly and effective when he has to deal with his opponents. So one of the things that has been admired by us as his colleagues is how dogged and determined he is when he is going after an opponent and doing it in a very sophisticated way, you know. Not dirty and down in the gutter, but when Eddie is finished with you, you well know who you are, because he is deadly when it comes to dealing with his opponents. But one of the things that we have celebrated so much about him has been his commitment to people who are challenged and disabled. For many years in this country, people hid their relatives and children who were in need, who were not, quote unquote, presentable, quote unquote, not normal. People were embarrassed sometimes to be related to persons like that. And so Barbados went through a time when hiding people with disabilities was normal. But this country has grown and matured and has begun to understand that everyone matters and everyone must be included. And in the vanguard, in the forefront of that battle has been Edmund Gregory Hinson. You can clap for that. So many people growing up, so many people scorn those who are not like us, bad talk people who are not like us. And with the kind of work that Eddie has done across this country, raising a flag, sounding his voice, advocating for benefits for people who are challenged, it has challenged us to look at our humanity and find our humane heart and go before God and say, I am sorry that I used to scorn people like that. I will now make them a priority. And Eddie has helped a country to find its conscience and to find its heart and to find its humanity. And Eddie, we will not forget that gift that you have given to us in terms of helping us to grow up as a people. It is with sadness that we are going to be saying, see you later. We're not saying goodbye because we expect you to be around. But when you have lived and served as long as Eddie has, I know that his heart would feel a certain way today as he seeks to say goodbye. And it would be normal to experience that. But what I want to leave with all of us is the good fortune that you have had. Because his coming to St. James North was a confluence of factors that worked together to make him the outstanding person that he is. One, he was the right person with the right heart, with the right spirit. But more importantly, he came to serve a people who were open, who were warm. The constituents of St. James North are people who express gratitude, who are people, very strong community-minded people. And so he's had the good fortune to serve a group of people who reflected back to him their gratitude for who he was and how he has served them. And then he has been surrounded by a team that has been committed to him from day one. You listened to part of it just now. Without a team who will support you, a family who will support you and make the sacrifices along with you, you cannot succeed in politics. And Eddie has been a blessing to St. James North, but he has been blessed by St. James North, with the people who he has served and with the people who have worked with him. So Eddie, I want to wish you all the best. We know another chapter is going to be opening, but I know you will write your history on that page with distinction in the way that you have written it on this particular page. And we look forward to what the future will bring for you. May God bless you, and may God truly cause his face to shine upon you and your family. In Jesus' name.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Edmund Hinson to the stage to give a few remarks. Mr. Hinson.
Good afternoon, all comrades in arms. But I have to, of course, recognize Deputy Prime Minister Sandra Bradshaw. Of course, I knew Sandra a long time before we walked up the steps of Parliament together for the first time on March the 6th, 2013. I mean, Sandra's dad, who she's fortunate enough to have alive still today. In fact, today is his birthday, and he was with us earlier. And my dad, who regrettably died, 15 years ago. We're very close, in arms, fighting on behalf of the Barbados Labour Party. In fact, my dad was chairman of National Housing Corporation when Delisle was Minister of Housing. And of course, Sandra and I shared law practice together for 5 years before we went in cabinet. Of course, Senior Minister William Dugard, we go far back. We spoke about that, both of us, in Parliament on Tuesday. If the last political election that I lost 25 years ago for third vice president to the party, and all the ministers and MPs here, I see Wilfred, I see Marsha, of course, Senior Minister Jerome, I see Medic, Tony, I think I see the speaker in the back, Arthur, Peter, of course. And Peter and I are special. Again, our fathers, I knew Peter's father before I knew him, because when I was like 9, 10, 11, I used to go to cricket occasionally with my father on a Saturday afternoon to watch Spartan. And Peter's father used to sit down side of us. And of course, it was only Spartan that they had that link. It was the Barbados Labour Party. And Peter would tell you that after last election, and you know, I made it known that I was not going to run again, and I decided in my mind that I would be his strategic manager, God willing, next election. So when Peter came to me and said, Eddie, boy, you're not running again, boy, I want you to help with an aspect of management to my campaign, I told him, Peter, but that done settled already. That done settled. I've decided, I've appointed myself. And I told Peter yesterday that once we know the date now, the 21st of May, and St. James North is safely returned to the Barbados Labour Party in the elected parliament of this country, that I'm at his disposal to canvass on a Sunday afternoon whenever he wishes and it's convenient in St. Lucie Walk in the Tower, as I was for half of election day last time, as he disclosed in Parliament. Members of, and Tony Moore, of course, I see here. If there are any other members of Parliament, you could let me know. Of course, the executive of the branch, past and present, and all the members of St. James North Barbados Labour Party, the wider Barbados Labour Party family. I know Shanice and Jonathan are here, the members of my staff constituency office, and the members, of course, of Clarkson Foundation. I see many here. Well, of course, my wife first, chairman, my daughter, Erica, see Hadford, one of my best friends. We are mutual godfathers of our sons. And I think I see Faye out there, yeah, Faye Lucas. I don't know if Jeff is here. Who else I leaving out? Karen, I think I saw, yeah, down there somewhere. And I'll speak a bit more about Clarkson as we go on, the media present as well. Look, it is with a great sense of pride, I must say, that I stand here today after 30 years being associated with St. James North. 30 years, I moved into the area. And because of the vagaries of gerrymandering of constituencies, even though I live in St. James North, I vote in St. Andrew. But, you know, I look outside my window and I see St. James North. And from the time we moved into the Waterhall Terrace in 1995, 30 years ago, I became associated with the branch of St. James North and with Rawl Eastman politically. Rawl has said, and when I was in a tremendous fight for domination of as candidate for the Barbados Labour Party of this seat, that in 1993 he signed to nominate me, to propose me rather, as a member of the party. Rawl would have nominated me, and now Sir Louis Tull seconded, or vice versa, one of the two. So when I came into this constituency, it was natural that, you know, I assist Rawl. I offered to assist Rawl. I remember, for instance, in 1996, 1997, we held a fundraiser at our house for Rawl. Diana, I think, was there, for instance. Faye, I know, was there. And it was only natural that I started thinking and people started suggesting to me that I think about offering myself as candidate for St. James North after all finishes. There's a person, Roy Bishop. I believe Roy may be here. I went up tremendously in his respect when, knowing Rawl was overseas, he was Minister of Labour then, so he was in Geneva, ILO, and a hurricane passed through Barbados. Which one that was? Thomas or one of them? It was about 2002 or 3. Might have been Thomas. Okay, I didn't see you. Welcome. And I called Roy and told him, Roy, as soon as we get the all clear, we going out and drive around the whole constituency and see what, if any, damage is done. And didn't have to do it. I was an MP, wasn't working in any paid position on behalf of Rawl or anyone else. And I went up in the States of Roy because I knew Rawl was not there, and I said, look, let me take the handle of this situation. I was always of the view that I would get into elective politics if given the opportunity. From the time I was a teenager, I said I want to be a lawyer, and if given the opportunity, I would get into politics. Because I come from a political family background. William says that he has more elected members of parliament in his family than I do, and I take that one plus, but I'm the fourth, and I'm proud of that. You know, it isn't that because of my deep roots in the BLP, I had an easy time. Not at all. Because we all know that my nomination was perhaps the sternest nomination ever across political battles in this country. I earned my dues. It was not handed to me because of the fact that Liz is my cousin, my born first female MP of Barbados, my father's first cousin, her father before her, my great uncle Darry Foster, both members of Parliament of St. Andrew. But coming from that kind of background, as Liz would tell you too, it was inculcated in us that we had to serve, that service was important, that having the benefit of some of the best education in Barbados, you have a duty, a moral duty, a spiritual duty to give back to your country as best as you could. And therefore, from early, I prepared myself for the possibility that I could, given the opportunity, make a move to try to get in Parliament. But you don't just walk off the street and say you want to be a member of Parliament, at least not in my view. You will not be successful. So, whereas in this election, we have brought to you a candidate with a track record for 25 years as President of the Young Socialists, CARICOM Youth Ambassador, serving at the highest level on our behalf in Geneva, serving in that capacity as Barbados's ambassador to about 8 other countries, someone who is extremely well trained and prepared, has been now minister of an economic ministry, now a ministry of social ministry. Someone is yet to tell me what's the track record of our opponent in this election. You don't run someone because they may have been born in a CARICOM country, and look, let me stay up front. No one is going to hear me say that that person is not eligible to be a representative, parliamentary representative in Barbados because they're not Barbadian born. As I pointed out in a Barbados Labour Party chat, virtually every political administration have had ministers in it who are not born in Barbados. And I believe that's unknown. I will not call names because clearly a lot of BLP people do not know people who have been ministers in our administrations who are not born in Barbados. But what I would say is that you do not run someone in a constituency because you feel that there are a lot of St. Lucians there and therefore they're going to vote for you. Because I would have to ask you, firstly, why did in 2018, no, where we at 2018 first, 2011 too, but 2018 stands out, where the Democratic Labour Party and Front du Stroh went to court even on the day of the election to try to prevent St. Lucians, Guyanese, Trinidadians, Vincentians, who eligible to vote in Barbados from voting. Because the Constitution of Barbados gives them that right. You don't have to be a citizen to be able to vote here if you're a CARICOM national. All you need is permanent status even. Immigrant status. 6 months. And it was Errol Barrow who made that. That's been in the Constitution of Barbados since 1966. So they would have to answer, certainly to me, on that issue. Because the St. Lucians that I know and the OECS born citizens eligible to vote in this constituency, Lower Carlton, the Garden, all round, have their status because of starting from Tom Adams, 1978, 1976, 77, when Tom gave them amnesty. because they came to work in the sugar plantations in the 1960s when a lot of Barbadians started to move away from agriculture into tourism. So these are people who loyal to the Barbados Labour Party, and Wilfred and I had a conversation up to yesterday on that particular issue. So Chad speaks patois. When Chad and I took Chad in Dublin Road, and because Chad has a background in St. Lucia too, helping in political campaigns, I took Chad at this particular house, a St. Lucian born lady, and Chad and her family and Chad started talking patois with the people. I didn't know Chad talks patois. Could probably speak patois better than the DLP candidate. That's the truth. So this kind of fraudulent and hypocritical behavior is something I can condemn in the highest degree. In 2013, the first time I ran, I happened to see Mara Thompson in Lower Carlton a Saturday morning, and I said, what am I seeing here now? Mara Thompson in St. Lucia would not turn an eye at the St. Lucians who live in Lower Carlton. She would not associate with them sociologically, psychologically, socially, or otherwise. And I mean, she was there, she was looking across the road like she didn't know how to get across. I had to tell some fellas there, look, that is the widow of the late Prime Minister. Please ensure her safe passage out here. Look after her, man. So, really first thing, you come with a background. So therefore, of service. So, I said, look, let me join the Lions clubs. Of course, Lions had done a lot for people who are blind and deaf. My sister, as everyone knows, is deaf. Let me, join subsequently St. John Ambulance, legal advisor, pro bono, and Wilfred spoke about that on Thursday, because after I felt I had served long enough in that capacity, I recommended Wilfred. In fact, Wilfred said, I told him, Wilfred, you seem like a man with ambition. This is something I feel you should do as part of your record. And Wilfred says he had no choice but to take it up. Salvation Army. How the Salvation Army came in is that when we lost office in 2018, and, I knew obviously I would have to come off. I'm the Barbados Building Authority that I was on as deputy chair, and I think National Cultural Foundation of which I was a member, and therefore I knew I would have some time on my hands to do more community work. And I called the Salvation Army head and told him, look, Salvation Army is, in my opinion, one of the three most credible international NGOs, and I want to do some work. And the head said, Edmund Hinson, we know your reputation as a man of integrity and hard work. You come to the next board meeting of the directors of the Salvation Army. And therefore, that started my 5 years as a director of the Salvation Army until I obviously had to demit when I won a seat in Parliament. Disabilities, I don't need to speak about that. That is a lifelong commitment on my part. Starting 36 years ago, everyone knows my commitment to that. And, I say straight, I probably would not have got into elective politics but for my phenomenal determination to make life better in this country for people with disabilities. That's the truth, and therefore join Lions and Association for the Blind, the Deaf. But the reality of it, as those who are elected members of Parliament in here would tell you, that you can't make a fundamental difference unless you are in that Parliament of Barbados, the forum that passes laws which affect the daily living of everybody in this country. So after doing all of that, I realized, look, I need to get into Parliament to try and champion this cause even further. You could only carry it so far outside of Parliament. And clearly, I am so proud to have been part of a government, part of a Parliament that has passed legislation, rights of persons with disabilities legislation, and a national policy to implement that legislation. And, you know, if that's my fundamental legacy to this country, let it be. You know, I was honored to have served, you know, as in the cabinet of Barbados. As I said on Thursday, when you offer yourself to a constituency, you offer yourself as a parliamentary rep, not as a cabinet minister, but as Home Affairs Minister, and you heard one or two members of Parliament, Kurt Humphrey especially, speak about my role in initiating the reforms, transformation of immigration department, such that I think that everyone, or certainly virtually everyone at this meeting today will agree that the immigration department is easily one of the most customer-friendly and efficient departments in this country right now. It's not an easy task. As Wilfred, who would have continued it, would tell you, it was not an easy task at all. Tremendous resistance. But as was said in Parliament on Thursday, I'm persistent, and I could be a nuisance to you. That is the truth. They didn't say the second part, but I say the second part. So I now see Colin Jordan, who I'm tremendously indebted to as well. 1/5 of St. James North is actually in the parish of St. Peter. See Colin here as well. But first, you know, I wish to thank the Lord Almighty for giving me the physical strength, mental capacity to serve as your Member of Parliament for just over 12 years. Wish to thank my family, wife, my 2 children. Everybody knows Erica. In some parts of the constituency, among young people, I was known as Erica Hinson's dad, not as the parliamentary representative. So, I mean, Christina, for example, who stood here, and you would have heard her speak about her impression of me from the first Life and Skills program. Christina was a graduate of that first program. Erica was also on that program. And Erica is to be admired. Erica went through half of that program. Nobody knew she was Edmund Hinson's daughter. That is the truth. But from that program, she and Christina are almost, well, certainly they're mutual, one of best friends. They're godmothers of each of their children, for instance. And you know, when the opportunity finally came up, with it being clear that Rawl would not run again, and I remember calling my family together. I mean, Beverly married me knowing that I was someone who wanted public service, so you take what you get. The 2 children didn't ask to be born, or didn't say, you know, I won't be born to a politician. So I call them, you know, are you willing to give up your dad for the next 10, 15 years, whatever, to the people of St. James North and to the wider Barbados? And both said yes. To be truthful, if either of them had said no, might not have done it. But I knew they wouldn't have said no. Erica at that time was 21, an adult. Gregory was 17. And Gregory, most of y'all in here don't know Gregory. The only time you would have seen Gregory was in pictures of my first victory in 2013. You would see him in pictures of that. But from 2014, he's been living overseas. I'm going to see him on Monday. Comrade Lead is well aware that I'm going. That's been planned for a while. I told her the dates a long time ago. Generally only see him once a year. That's the truth. And looking forward to seeing him for a few days and come back the following week fully vitalized and rejuvenated to get into the meat of this campaign, believe you me. So both having clearance from a family, got into politics, got into elective politics, Raul, I am tremendously indebted to you for introducing me to many of the constituents, the key people in this constituency. You would have heard Gretel say that Raul brought me to her just like how I brought Chad to her last year. That's what a member of parliament has to do. And you hand over your seat, in my solemn opinion, when the seat is still relatively safe and secure. I'm handing over this seat to Chad Blackman when it is still relatively safe and secure. I would have done the second best last election in terms of percentage vote. William Duguid would verify that. He's the statistics man. 82% last election. The previous election, 2018, I did the third best. 84%. Only the Prime Minister doing better than me both elections. No, I expect that. Prime Minister up in 90. You can't compete with that. And Cynthia doing better than me in 2018 in terms of percentage. So St. James North has been faithful to the Barbados Labour Party for 69 of the 74 years since the Right Excellent Sir Grantley Herbert Adams gave everybody in this meeting the right to a vote, and not based on property or wealth as it was previous to 1951. And the slogan in 1951 in St. James North was "One gone, one gone." That the Barbados Labour Party, well, it was St. James then, 2 seats. Barbados Labour Party taking one of those 2 seats, Ellsworth Holder. That we were breaking the hold that the white commercial mercantile plantation class had on the political fortunes of Barbadians. So you had members of the Big Six, don't need to call the name, at least one member of the Big Six representing St. James. People who owned a lot of land, still own a lot of some land in St. James North. And the Barbados Labour Party in 1951, winning 15 of 16 seats that we contested, starting its relationship with St. James, and more specifically St. James North. When you look at the votes, obviously St. James North went to the BLP. And that's the legacy. And you know, as I said, one of the responsibilities of an MP, in my opinion, is to hand over a seat that your party can win. Members, long-standing members of both political parties have not been able to do that. I don't need to call any names, but you can look at history where, in my opinion, we had long-standing members of the party who run one election too much, such that when they handed over in the election, when they resigned, or retired rather from politics, we could not win the seat. We did not win the seat. We might have retained it, then got it back after one term, but they couldn't hand over the seat. I'm not doing that. The seat is not mine for the taking. I said at the start that I would run 3 terms. That's what I have done. So there's nobody who forcing me out, nothing. So I said that let me achieve what I came into politics to achieve. Main thing is disabilities reform, and give my 200% to the constituency of St. James North, which God knows I have done. So first thing, let's start, because you all know when you go out there over the next 26 days what we have done. Well, Williams tells me that he gave me 4 roads as Minister of Transport. Sandra would tell you that I wrote for Sandra, you know Sandra and I go far back. Enough roads. No, I ain't saying. But William 4 roads and Sandra 12. So I can tell you this here. Early last week, Sunday or Monday, when I drove up Rotunda Road from the bottom to the top, I shed tears. That finally, after 13 years, that I was candidate for this party, that Rotunda Road is a smooth road. Believe you me, I am not lying to you. When I reached the top, I shed a tear. It has been a fight. Rotunda Road was always the number one priority. 11 other roads done within the last 2 years in this constituency. Still, yeah, about 12 more to get done. That is the truth. 10 more. But the fact of the matter, because I heard that the Dems had the audacity to talk about roads that were up in Aston Hall last week, and they talked about 2 roads there that haven't been done. Well, those roads haven't been done because the Dems in the 5 years, 3 months that I was member of parliament did 0 roads in this constituency. I wrote their then Minister of Transport, Michael Lashley, tons of letters on roads to be done. Got none done. 5 years, 3 months. You will remember the parliament was extended to the 90th day after the last election. Not one road done. They have no moral authority to talk about roads in St. James North not being done. Not when they did none. Because, and you know, normally, and I ain't calling name now, their Minister of Education, someone who used to act as Prime Minister, told me to my face in Parliament, Hinson, you could write as many letters to me, to the Minister of Health. You bring a disabilities resolution in here calling for disabilities legislation as I did in March 2016. You could do whatever. You could write the Minister of Transport, the Prime Minister, Minister of Education. We ain't doing nothing for St. James North. And he spoke truthfully. The Dems did nothing for St. James North. 0. He said, Hickson, we know we can't beat you. We can't beat you. We can't win this seat. We ain't doing nothing for you. And that is the truth. So we had to come from far behind in this constituency in May 2018 to start things. In a situation where we won all 30 seats and therefore resources got spread around kind of evenly. So when the Dems come to you and talk foolishness about this and that, tell them you don't care about St. James North. Tell me what you have done for St. James North recently. Tell me what you have done for me or my family recently. Because the Dems had no presence in this constituency since February 2013 until last week when, like an accident on a road looking to happen somewhere, the surface is the zone. And people had to show them where the zone is because they thought the zone was in St. Peter. The constituency of St. Peter, in the parish of St. Peter, thought it was in St. Peter. But where the zone is, though? So the first thing I did when, and we can talk about my relationship with Chad a bit later on, but the first thing I did in March last year when I started taking Chad out was I told Chad, first thing you got to do is know the boundaries. Because they got some candidates, right, for the Democratic Labour Party who will be canvassing across the road, thinking it's their constituency, right? So for 2 Sunday afternoons, we went all round, showing Chad the boundaries of this constituency, stopping at key people, right, in the constituency and introducing him to them. So Fabian Thornhill, who is here somewhere, and Horace Hines, who is here somewhere, drove us one afternoon and the other around. Fabian here, look. So that's the first thing. So that is essentially the perspective that we are on. But, you know, I am eternally grateful to the constituents, to the people of St. James North, for allowing me the opportunity to serve you in the Parliament of Barbados. And that's not to be just slighted off. When you reflect on it, and those elected MPs who are here, past and present, can tell you, look, like this afternoon, we were in Upper Carlton. Sandra was with us. And nobody expecting you to come to their house at any time. You don't have an appointment to come to them. So they're obliged to see you, you know. So you knock at the door respectfully and you ask to see them, spend a few minutes with them. In that time, introduce yourself as candidate, humbly ask for their vote, you know, but they're obliged to see you. I mean, we all know some women may be undressed at the time, but they're in the house relaxing, right? They might go and put on a towel. I remember one of the first times I went out with Rawl, because Rawl introduced me to a lot of the key people in St. James North, and we went at a house a Sunday morning, and the lady was obviously undressed, and by the time she presented herself to us, she had on a towel. And then when I saw her now, the next week in Bridgetown, she looked at me, Miss Dixon, and I said, yes. She said, oh Lord, it's like you don't remember me now, I dressed. I said, oh, yeah. I now remember. That is the truth. That is the truth. And sometimes women might test you, William, and I, deep friends after our battle 25 years ago, and William would tell you that some women, you know, they see you down the road, that you're coming. Some now, on the other hand, now go and put on something, and, you know, and you got to look at them in the eye, because they want to know, you know, whether you're a man or not. It's all of that. The challenges of thing. I mean, the phone calls. Everybody speaks about my phone calls, but it was variously said at 4:30 in the morning. I mean, 'cause I know William up at 4:30. I see you online, so we messaging at 4:30. Some said 5:30. Some said 6 o'clock. Medic say on Sunday mornings, right? But the constituents have the right to call you at any and every time too, right? That is the truth. So I sleep in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and 3 years ago or so, and Erica comes, Dad, I sleep in. I say, Erica, what is wrong now? Boy, a fire down the road, you know, Drake shop. And I sleep in, so it took me about 15 seconds to register. So I get up, and I look through my window, and lo and behold, I see a fire. Well, I got to go. And you heard Sandra speak. Drake's is not in my constituency. Drake's across the border. Right? I mean, Drake's is a man, God rest his soul. Strong them. The Dems used to get Drake's light. when they had the meeting in Westmoreland. That is the truth. But Drake's is a human being. Drake's is the village shop closest to me. I put on a short pants and a t-shirt, and in 10 minutes, I down by there. When I see the firemen, I ask what's going on, firemen. They tell me, boy, look, Drake's couldn't get out. But don't tell nobody, because we ain't even tell the family. I stopped there 45 minutes. That is what representation is about. This ain't about B or D now, or this ain't about whether the person is your constituent and therefore you ain't trying to help them, because Barbados is too small for that. Everybody related, everybody got a friend, right? And it ain't a B or D, because you as a woman is as strong as still BLP, and your man, your husband, your common law spouse is a strong them. And the truth is, especially in 2018, I got frightened. That is the truth. Because everybody knows my concentration in politics was to deal with the female vote. All right? First thing, St. James North have a higher percentage of female vote by about 8 or 9% than men. Second thing, women can more influence their children to go and vote for you than a man can. So, you know, I got real frightened because the women, the female BLPs now telling the husbands and the men, and some of them in here, but I call no names. And look, you got to vote for Edmund this election, man. You them what? You voting for Edmund, man? Jesus. And I said, Lord, look at what I cause now. I can cause some breakup here now, or some men to be without particular privileges for the 3 weeks of election now. And there are some men that as a result of that went and voted for the Barbados Labour Party for the first time in their life. That is the truth. That is the truth. So we get 3,716 votes in 2018, up from 2,550 in 2013. But that don't come by happen chance. That is tremendous hard work in those 5 years, 3 months. You have to gain the confidence of the people. It doesn't come just overnight, gaining confidence and trust of people. It comes by commitment, determination, hard work. That is the truth. It takes time. It doesn't come overnight in many cases. And the Dems, on the contrary, dropping from 2,100 votes in 2013. The difference was only 440 between us in 2013, dropping from 2,100 votes in 2013 to 595 in 2018, 608 3 years ago. So in other words, the Dems, the hardcore Dems in this constituency stood at 600 votes for 4 years between 2018 and 2022. We must aim not to give them much more, if any, than that. And the aim must be the 3716 that we got in 2018. Of course, in 2018. Of course, the 2538 last election was in a COVID election. We know that. A lot of people didn't vote because if you have COVID, you're not going and vote. If your mother who live in your house got COVID, you can't go and vote. If you had a COVID test yesterday, you got to wait for the results before you go and vote today. So that's the dynamics that all of us faced in 2022, but the result was still the same, 30 love. Although obviously the percentages of people voting were a lot lower. But I have to single out some special people though. Having thanked all the constituents, I have to single out Tattoo Sandyford, who is in the geriatric hospital. We got him in there with the help of Jerome last September. Some of his relatives are here present with us today. I would not be standing here thanking you for being your representative for 12 or more years, but for Tattoo Sandyford. And I know you won't cut my hair now, but this is my last hurrah. This is my last hurrah. You gotta give me, you got Shara, you gotta give me some more time, man. And you know, because I hear telling you all and preparing you for this campaign. What's that? And Tattoo knows everybody. His mantra was, everybody business is his business. So he knew everything about everybody. And what stood out, we were a Saturday afternoon in the constituency. I told Tattoo, I gotta go out. This is the last house we go into. And lo and behold, that last house is a woman, a lady, who, brother, I defended the person who killed her brother. That would have been over 20 years, about 25 years before 2013 election. And the lady comes out. Edmund Hinson, I know you had to come at my house sometime. I did waiting for you. You so and so, so and so. Not cuss words, but abusive words. You defended the person who killed my brother, man. I said, wait, I said first to myself, Lordy, what I get myself into now? Man, and it came out obviously where it was. The furthest part you could be from St. James North. I said to myself, oh Lord, I can't believe this. That the lady who I defend the brother, who killed the brother, end up in St. James North. And, you know, but when she finished, you know, I held her hands. And I told her, Ma'am, I am so sorry. I really am sorry for your brother's death. After all, it was the judge who only gave my client only 4 years. I was trying to shift the blame to the judge. But, you know, I have a duty as a lawyer to do the best for my client. And the same way I fought for my client, I am going to fight for you and the people of St. James North to the best of my ability. Jesus Christ. I said to myself, this ain't a quick thing. I was looking for a quick 5 or 10 minutes because I had somewhere to go. I had an appointment. I decided, obviously, boy, look, I got to spend time here now. By the time I left, the lady and I hugging up. She crying on my shoulders. I say, Mr. Hinson, Mr. Hinson, Mr. Hinson. If that was an example of what politics and people is about. And by the time I went home, had a bath, I drive in now, late to where I was to go. The lady calling me, Mr. Hinson, this, that, you gotta come back and see me, this, that, you got all the votes in my house. That is what it is. That is persistence and things. You can encounter things. And Tattoo said, Edmund Hinson, if I didn't have respect for you before, I got absolute and total respect for you. Know how you dealt with that situation. I was wondering how you going to get out of that. That is where it is. So, you're only as good as your last favor, though. And Peter Phillips will tell you that I told him that, and he came to find that out. The birthday calls. Look, when I first started out, I said, look, let me try and identify a way that I could get into the hearts and minds and souls of people. Everybody knows I have a system that identifies everything about you based on information put in, and your ID card is your birthday. And therefore, yes, I started to call everyone on their birthday. I would never have understood at the time I made that decision the impact that it had on people. And when you think of it, yes, it's the people's special day. So people all in my constituency would go all around Barbados saying, man, look, My MP called me on my birthday today, man. What you could say about that? I would meet people all about and say, oh, Lord, man, ex-white, who is my friend, said you call them on the birthday. They're so happy. And, you know, again, it impacted on me many times. Because sometimes I will call, and the mother or the husband say, oh, Lord, well, I forget that it's my son's birthday today. Or I forget it's my wife's birthday today. In one case, a man told me, Edmund Hinson, I'm not letting you speak to my wife right now. Call back in a half hour because I got to tell her happy birthday first. Call back in a half hour, man. Man forgot his wife's birthday. One time, couple relatives of the person in here right now, because during the week I would call you obviously 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. I gotta go to work, you gotta go to work. So this particular day now is a Saturday. So obviously the last 5 times the lady, I accustomed calling them early in the morning. On Saturday, Sunday, I won't call so early. And I got a phone call. Edmund Hinson, this person sitting down at the phone side of the phone waiting for you to call, man. Try and call them. We here to take them out, man. They say they ain't leave until you get your phone call. So, you know, that's the relationship that you build up with people. I'm indebted to the directors of Clarkson Foundation for being the avenue through which we raised funds and had the life and work skills programs that you've heard about, the parenting programs, that impacted on hundreds of people in this constituency. Also indebted to the Clarkson Foundation for the thousands of people that we were able to assist through the resources of the foundation raised in fundraisers every about 18 months. The school uniforms, the food vouchers, all the churches, the schools, the sports clubs, the NGOs, everything, medical expenses, education. I'm not one to publicize things. So a lot of people who were helped, people would never know. And you know, your thanks is in knowing that you made a difference in the lives of some people. In terms of achievements for this constituency that you will be talking about, the roads, we spoke about that, the spanking new fish market, the most modern fish market in the Caribbean, the house repairs for people, the road view project, and Chad will speak more about that, where we have accessed $50 million loan to buttress road views shoreline. You heard about the traffic lights at Westmoreland, and again, that was a fight. That was a tremendous fight for which I'm indebted to William Duguid and Peter Phillips for that, as Minister of Transport and Minister of State, respectively, for that. Because again, the Democratic Labour Party, Michael Lashley, when we took him up there, he said, man, can't afford to do this. This can cost $400,000. And William Duguid and Peter Phillips found poles in their ministry for which they then used to do the traffic lights, to save people's lives, because 4 people had got killed at that junction over the last few years before that was done. I will still be available to the people and government of Barbados. I said that in my resignation speech. I said that on Thursday in Parliament. I say that now. It isn't that I'm retiring and going and put up my shoes. I will still be available because I will always be available to contribute to the national development of this country. I will always, of course, once I have breath in my body and mental capacity, help in terms of people with disabilities, help in terms of parent education and the challenges of parenting. As I said, we look forward to all hands being on deck over the next 26 days to ensure that the Barbados Labour Party wins this seat. We don't take it for granted. At 6 o'clock in the morning on the 21st of May, not one ballot going to be in any ballot box in any of the 9 polling stations. Ballots now got to be put in. St. James North is a seat that I personally know that by 9 o'clock, you win. I remember Jerome in 2018 called me, how things going? That was about 10:30. How things going? I told him, Jerome, we've won it already. No, don't worry. So we are looking forward to a massive victory, but it can only be done with your help. I will certainly be on deck when I return to ensure that all is done. So finally, I thank the people, especially the branch members and members of the various executives, past and present, of St. James North, for being with me and helping me be able to stand here today. I'm obliged to you.
Let's hear it for Edmund Hinson. All right. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Eddie. I'll introduce Christina.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready, because we're about to witness not just another introduction. It is an arrival of someone destined to make waves, shake things up, and lead with bold purpose, a powerhouse of talent, a visionary in the making, and a force to be reckoned with. He's a big man with big plans for St. James North. So make some noise and join me in welcoming the future, the game changer, the one and only, the big man, Senator Chad Blackman.
Yeah, sharp vibes. Yeah, red boys. Yeah. Can I really talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Hold on. You're coming at the dance, and you woke up ready. But you ain't bring no friends, nor no family. You see the stranger on your left, you see the stranger on your right. Better start to jam up with them, cause we fucking in here tonight and we chanting. Together we drinking, together we whining. One night we pumping, fretting till the morning. Tell me how you feeling. You know why? All away in the carnival, all away in the festival, all away in the bacchanal, all away. Whatever you get, a wine on your bumper. The crowd push you over, we pushing back. Lord, everybody now get in your zone. Nobody here should whine alone. All of we end up in one place, taking up space. This fete is we home. We don't want no drama.
Thank you. Huh? What do you want now? You there? All right. Cool. I got just a second. Labour Party! Labour Party! St. James North. No, one more time. St. James North. Let me say how happy I am to be officially the candidate for the Barbados Labour Party for the constituency of St. James North. I first, of course, want to and have to acknowledge God for giving me strength, for giving me courage, but equally for giving me a family of the Labour Party who has embraced me from 18 years old until now. I also want to thank Edmund Hinson, the man who has served this constituency with stellar service. Eddie, we owe a debt to you. We owe a debt to you. And I'm very humble that I've been able to not just represent the party in the upcoming by-election on May 21, but I also do so cognizant of the fact that I stand on the shoulders of giants. I can start with Lammy Craig. Many of you know who Lammy Craig was and what he stood for. You come on down to who? Raul Eastman, a titan, a giant. We come down, of course, to Eddie, as I mentioned. And with your help on May 21, we will go to the polls from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and elect Chad Blackman as the next member of parliament for St. James North. And I want to say a number of things to you this evening about the campaign and the road ahead. This campaign for me and for the Labour Party is one that will be energized, full of life, full of vigor, full of creativity, but equally it will be underscored with a level of humility, because we in the Labour Party understand you do not take people for granted. That is the difference between this party and every other party. We don't come to people on the basis of entitlement. After the Prime Minister asked me to come back from Geneva last year, would have started in the constituency, going house to house, starting every Sunday with Eddie from last February, March. Why is that important? Because you have to get to know the people. And therefore, over the last year plus, I've been every week, sometimes every day, going house to house, shop to shop, church to church, making sure that I can understand the needs and interests of people. And that is the Labour Party way. And therefore, I have not just come to you a week ago, starting a campaign in St. Peter, in the constituency of St. Peter. I have started campaigning with you in the constituency of St. James North. Because only people in St. James North can vote in the by-election in St. James North. But why am I also bringing myself and placing myself before the people of this constituency? I started as a young man in the party, as an ordinary member in the youth arm. I then became a floor member in the youth arm. I then became the president of the youth arm. And that allowed for me to understand the rudiments of service in this great party. And I want to use the occasion to thank the elders of our party who continue to ensure that young people like myself can come into this party, be embraced with Labour love, but show you how to move forward with the way. It is about ensuring that there's a transition between generation 1 and 2. And really, it also allowed for me to understand the principles of what makes this party the greatest party in the Caribbean. It is a party built on the basis that every single human being has a God-given talent that must be nurtured and harnessed and catapulted. As it says, creating a better life for our people. And it is my intention, once God gives me the strength, on May 21, you give me the vote. To ensure that you and your families and your communities have within a representative someone that will ensure that the life of you and your families are improved. After being president of the youth arm, I did a number of different things. I actually started as parish ambassador at 18. Why am I saying this? In order to be a leader in a community, in a constituency, it has to be done on the basis of service. The Bible tells you, and if you look at the model of Jesus, Jesus, of course, was our Savior and is our Savior. But he made it clear to his disciples, if I'm going to lead you, I have to serve. And he did so with a level of humility. And one of the things about my style of politics and service is, as he said in the Bible, when he performed significant miracles, he would always tell his disciples and those also that he healed and performed miracles, go and tell no one. Why am I saying that? From me as a representative, You will not see someone that will come and fix your house and go on social media and post it up. Why? Because your dignity must not be my social media op. Service requires that you help people in time of need. Already since I started last year, everybody, I'm sure pretty much in St. James North, has my cell number. And for those of you who want it, I'm saying it, do you know? 266-7649. Because why? I answer my phone. Because I believe that I have to put myself before you. And service requires someone who can not just be accessible 24 hours, but who can listen to you, who can empathize with you, who can share your pain when necessary, and be there in your times of need, but equally cognizant of the fact that you have aspirations and goals that can go to Parliament in Bridgetown and to represent the interests of this constituency at the same time. My experience has been one of different things and different times. My background, of course, is in international trade law. It is in a bit of technology. But the core that I want you to take away this evening, and of course over the course of the campaign, you'll be seeing my background. So I'm not going to labor on that this evening. But I want to send the message to the constituency and to the people that I am here to serve you. Already people will come and say, boy, you are incredibly talented, but you're very humble. My father taught me a virtue. Manners and humility can open doors more than money can. And it may seem like a very simple phrase, but it is something that keeps me. And one of our former leaders always said, never forget or lose the sense of your own what? Unimportance. Why is that important? Because you can rise to the highest levels. You have to serve with a level of humility that allows for people to be able to see you as an ordinary man, which you are at all times. But part of my vision for the constituency, and St. James North is really, in my view, the image of what the rest of Barbados can look like and should look like. It is both a coastal constituency, it is a rural constituency, it has some of the richest soils in the country that can yield significant output for agriculture, it has a tourism belt, it has an urban corridor, it has a level of sporting excellence, and now I want to show off, particularly after May 21, to my future parliamentary colleagues. Because in this constituency, you have a high level of persons who have been not just Barbados cricketers, but West Indies cricketers, the Hurleys, the Gibsons, call them for me. A lot of them are there. The Drakes. So up in Sand Hill, on that little pasture right there, has and is producing a quality of global sportsmanship that we have never seen. But the truth is, the north of the country is really the sporting capital of Barbados, if you ask me. It is a fact. And we must now move to take it to another level that allows for every young person who wants to play cricket, football, netball, road tennis, to move to the next level of their development. There are a lot of young persons, particularly in Western and Gibbs and Trents and Sand Hill, who've come to me and said, Chad, we want to now take road tennis to another level in St. James North. I promise you, in short order, you can get it. And I ain't even talking about May 21. Before then, why? Because already even, and I must give a joke, the Prime Minister kept this date so close. She kept it close. But even before she announced it, we were already putting things in place to roll out so that the young people can have their due. Agriculture, as I said, is one of the things that this constituency must now take to the next level. There's no doubt that food security is a major issue, not just for St. James North or for Barbados, but the Caribbean is now in a level of ensuring that it can become self-sufficient in most of the things that we produce, or at least eat. Because why? It only takes, Lord forbid, a hurricane or a natural disaster or different external shocks that can cut us off from access to food. But this constituency will have the benefit of an agricultural initiative that would allow for our persons, not just young people, but those who have backyard farms or land, to be able to produce your goods. And when the Saturday comes and the weekend comes, to have a farmer's market that you can sell your produce to, so that persons in the constituency can now move from production to market. Because why? If you do that, you allow for people now to ensure that food security is not just an ideal concept, but it is a lived reality. There are a number of issues that affect us, of course, climate change. And over the course of the campaign, you will be hearing a lot of the things that we plan to do, and certainly as representative, I intend to do with your help, to ensure that climate change does not affect us as much as it has done before. Of course, we cannot control external shocks or the weather, but there are things that we can do to build resilience. So what do I mean? There is no doubt that the West Coast, and in particular the coast in St. James North, isn't only about hotels, you know. It is a coastal community with fisheries. And we have to ensure that the communities have the capacity to be able to, one, continue to fish, but equally provide for their families. But it's not that easy as well. When you have the rising levels of the sea coming in, the tides, they rip away our shores. And therefore it affects, of course, tourism, but it affects the fishing communities. And that is why I'm happy that last year, when I was in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, I, along with the Ministry of Economic Affairs and the rest of Cabinet, was able to get a $50 million loan from the World Bank so as to build the coastal capacity of the entire West Coast from St. Lucie down to Bridgetown. And therefore, you're going to see more of the redeveloping of our coast so as to ensure that beach life is protected, coastal infrastructure is protected, but the local communities must benefit from that. And I also put out a challenge. Yes, you can clap for that. I also put out a challenge, and I want to work with the members of the coastal communities in particular. They have a lot of local knowledge. You see local knowledge? There's something, and Adrian, you can treat to this. Local knowledge plays a significant role in helping us to understand what we need to do with building out the infrastructure, where to fish, how to do it, so that as government builds out its resilience program, local knowledge has to work hand in hand, and I see myself as that conduit between St. James North and the government and the rest of Barbados. My vision for the constituency equally is that every young child who is born or lives in this constituency, of course the rest of Barbados, but we're talking about St. James North today, will have and continue to have access to quality education in the context of education transformation. And what is that transformation about, and how will people benefit in St. James North? You have St. Albans, you have St. Boniface, and of course you have Gordon Greenwich at the primary level. And these schools will continue to have the resources that government will provide, but they're going to be boosted in a way that allows for them that when they come in, they will have an enhanced set of facilities and plants. And why is this? As you walk into a place, it sets your mind to learn, to enjoy. Let me put it in another way. If you wanted to go and have a bit of relaxation, and you walked into, or you were driving into a hotel, and the hotel looked a little popped down, psychologically you ask yourself, no, but I don't want to go in there. So therefore the idea is, and the ministry is working assiduously to ensure that the physical infrastructure of our schools are fit for purpose for our children, our teachers, our ancillary staff, so that they have a comprehensive environment that they can learn in the best way. But in addition to the infrastructure, part and parcel of what you're going to see throughout the country, which of course will benefit us here, is a revised and reformed curriculum that fits the needs of Bajans in a Bajan way. What do I mean? I remember at school, you would have, for example, in your music course, a recorder. I'm not knocking the recorder. The truth is I could have never played the recorder. But music and the music curriculum has to now be transformed in a wider context that allows for us to have, in my view, the creative arts as a comprehensive module where you can not just learn music, but you could do sound engineering. You can learn how to produce beats in school. You can learn how to be a manager of artists. So that by the time you leave school, you now have an ability to be able to walk into the business world and to learn and to do different things. And therefore, I also want to ensure that as we build out these things, that we also go back to basics as well. You see, literacy and numeracy, our people must be able to treat to these things. And I'm going to be rolling out, not just as a minister, of course, but as member of parliament, with your help, a literacy program that allows for children and adults to be able to access these things. Because why? Part of what I always say it, sometimes our success in Barbados becomes our failure. And what do I mean? We've done well as a nation, particularly post-independence. And our literacy rates were up in I think 99.9% or 96, somewhere in that average. But because of it, over time, the society got very complacent, and we started to take our foot off of the gas. We have to now recommit to ensuring that every single member of society can read, and that they're literate, and they understand the fundamentals of mathematics and numeracy. Because why? The education system is not simply about passing people through a system. It is about ensuring that every stage they have the tools for development that allows for them to maximize their God-given potential and talent. And I'm calling on all of the retired teachers, educators, and persons who want to volunteer to come on board and helping us, particularly in the context of St. James North, to roll out the numeracy and literacy program for this constituency. Because why? We therefore allow our people to maximize going forward. But I also want to talk about community spirit. Community spirit. There's no question that from a sociological perspective, the country continues to change its complexion. And St. James North is no different. Because why? This is one of the 30 constituencies. But we have to now ensure that all communities in St. James North work together harmoniously in doing things that can build the capacity of our elderly, our youth, our vulnerable, our women, our men. And I'm going to be doing a lot of programs that can also ensure that our men can band together. Because why? If we don't protect our young men now, believe you me, as a society, we're going to pay in the long term for it. I come from humble beginnings, but I was fortunate that I had parents who placed a high premium on discipline, sending me to church on a Sunday, even when I didn't want to go. That's the truth. But as you got older in life, you realize the premium and the value of that discipline of church. So whether it's a church or a mosque, it doesn't matter. As the Prime Minister has said, we have to get back to basics and hold our society together. So as a representative, it is not just about, of course, going into Parliament and passing laws for you. Yes, that is part of it. That is necessary. But it is also about being there for people to be able to say, look, you're going on a wrong path. Come, let me reason. And I will give you an example that I've witnessed perhaps in the last 6 weeks. I was moving through the constituency one evening, and I saw a group of young people, male and female, having a bit of tension. And the tension started to go from probably 10 to 45 real fast. Then it went up. And I could have continued and said, I'm my business. But I knew the importance of it because I grew up in a community that also had a high level of vulnerability as well. And I stopped and I said, fellas, ladies, come. At first, I must tell you, they're like, man, Chan, we come here, don't get in this. I actually said, big man, don't get in this. But I said, no, come. And for the next 2 minutes, we battled in terms of trying to get them to calm down. But as I sat and I listened to them, at the root of every conflict is a misunderstanding. And when I broke it down for them, and I said, but this is what you're calling for? This is what you're calling for? They said, you know, big man, that makes sense. And what could have been a horrible scenario turned out into a lime, and they bought a few drinks, and we sit down and reason. The point I'm making is, as a leader, you have to roll up your sleeves. It is not just about sitting high on the office and saying, I am there. As an MP, you have to be accessible, you have to be humble, roll up your sleeves, and be there for your people. And that is my style of leadership that I commit to St. James North. The truth of it is as well, it will not always be easy. There are times when you will have to ask yourself, how can we reimagine St. James North going forward? And what do I mean by that? We live in a global world that is changing constantly. And part and parcel is that we have to ensure that as the country grows economically, that the constituency grows as well. It's not going to always be easy. Therefore, the idea is to create a program that mirrors the country's growth and development and to decentralize a lot of what we're happening here and the success stories at the national level. And I don't want to say that it is only for persons, quote unquote, in the traditional areas of development and the lawyers and the doctors, every single member of St. James North has an ability to contribute. And I'm going to be creating a lot of different committees in the community that people can now understand the role of national development, civics, and how to own their level of development going forward. This is the way forward. But there will be a lot of time for me to outline the programs and the initiatives that I want to roll out in the constituency. But I just simply want to say this. I want to commit to you publicly, and I'm doing it here not just because this is a political meeting and Eddie's handover to me as the candidate, but to go on record and equally to be vulnerable enough to say to you and to hold myself accountable publicly that I want to be a representative that is humble enough that if I make a mistake, I say, I am wrong and I am sorry. Why am I saying this? Leadership also requires us to be able to hold ourselves accountable when we fall short sometimes of what you have promised to people. And my style of leadership and politics and service is one rooted in my grandfather's style of politics. Many of you, of course, know Edmund Hinson, who was the Member of Parliament for St. Peter. And he himself had that same style. Chad, I could almost hear him now. Of course, as a little boy, he and I never had these conversations, but I heard a few of the speeches he gave in Parliament, so I know his voice pattern. But I could almost imagine him saying, Chad, when you go to people at St. James North, never take them for granted. And I want to commit to all of you that as long as I have breath in my body, that I will give of my every being to make sure that you have what is rightfully yours. And this campaign from me, and as I said before, the Labour Party, will not be one of any smearing and selling of anybody's character. I can't promise what the other side will do. That's their business for them. Because it is one of the things that always bothered me, that there are other political parties that would praise God and then in the next breath, cuss you stink. That will not happen under our campaign. Because God, what the Bible says, be not deceived, for God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. A word to the wise is enough. And you must not come to St. James North with a level of arrogance and insulting people. Sadly, it has already started. But the people on May 21 will decide and make a decision. Because why? Humble yourself. Humble yourself. I would like and encourage all persons who are contesting to look at the story of Nebuchadnezzar. Read the Bible. Humility is what is needed. Look at the story of Haman. Why? Because sometimes when you think you're doing wrong to people, it ends up coming back at you firsthand. But believe me, there's going to be a level of, or a series of times over the few weeks when you hear a number of things as to what I believe needs to be corrected. But tonight is not time for that. Tonight is a time for us to thank Edmund Hinson. Tonight is a time for us to say we are going forward with St. James North. Tonight is a time for us to recommit to the values of the Barbados Labour Party as started by Grantley Adams. Tonight is a time for also ensuring and saying to the rest of the country, we still standing with Mia Motley. Don't get it twisted. We behind Mia. 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 We behind. One more time. We behind Mia. We behind Mia. We behind Mia. We behind. Let me go. Hey, we behind. One more time. We behind. Hey, we behind. We behind. Let me go.
Clearly, I'm behind Chad. Please, please, please.
Can I really talk just a little bit?
Come, baby.
Can I really talk just a little bit? Can I really talk just a little bit? Hold on. You coming at the dance, and you woke up ready. But you ain't bring no friends. nor no family. You see the stranger on your left, you see the stranger on your right. Better start to jam up with them, cause we fucking in here tonight and we chanting. Together we drinking, together we whining. One night we pumping, fret until the morning. Tell me how you feeling. You know why? All away carnival,
All away,
festival,
all away,
bacchanal,
all away.
whatever you get, and when on your bumper.
Take it.
Very good. Thank you, Bill.
Good evening. How are you feeling? You know, the Barbados Labour Party has a way of doing its business, and long may that be the case. For 12 years, as a member of Parliament, Edmund Gregory Hinson served this constituency, you the members, with distinction. And you heard, keep clapping, that's fine. And you heard Eddie tonight come to you to close the chapter that you started with him. Informally, as you heard tonight, almost 30 years ago, but formally, 12 years ago. And it is instructive for young people as well, because Eddie didn't start on the basis of political service being his first exercise in wanting to help people. You heard all. I talked about him in the yellow and purple, the Lions Club vest. I talked about his work with the disabled community. And it is really probably not wise to link it to one association, because it really was across the entire group of persons in need of a voice and in need of strength. We talked about the St. John's Ambulance Brigade and the work that he did there. We talked about, and he explained to you this evening. Eddie, I was not here, but I listened to every word. Every word. Every word. Including those who you saw at home and in town. But you heard clearly that his determination, when given time again, while we were in opposition before becoming a candidate, that he made it his business to go and give that time back to people who were in need of it through the Salvation Army Board, where he served for 5 years on that board. And you know, he was absolutely correct that things happen for a reason. And whenever the history of this country is written, whenever and however, it will forever reflect, thank you, the fact that Edmund Hinson led the way in transforming how this nation treats to the most vulnerable of its citizens. That is not a small achievement by any measurement. And not to downplay sometimes what ministers do across all administrations, but in the minds of a nation, there are certain things that stand out. And today, as we buried Pope Francis, more than ever, it sits in my conscience and my spirit to reflect on this matter, because we come to be judged not by how we help the powerful, but how we help those least able among us. It is a lesson, first and foremost, rooted in every great religion. And in this country, where the majority are Christian, it is a lesson that has been instilled in us across every church and every Sunday school. But sometimes those lessons are not carried by persons. And that is why we have to keep telling people and reminding people of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But it is also the first rule of public service. And to that extent, therefore, Eddie, you have been blessed with the opportunity and you took it. I'm glad that you recalled, for the benefit of the public here, that this is not something that started in government. When I was opposition leader, you came to me and told me that you wanted to introduce the resolution in Parliament in circumstances where the then government could have done it with ease and failed to do it and failed to give voice to it properly either. And far from that, behaved in a manner that perhaps made you, as Owen Arthur would say, the finest steel. Because when Eddie Hinson first went into that parliament because of his lisp, the Democratic Labour Party taunted him and treated him in the worst possible way, mocking him. And we kept saying, and you know why I remember this? Because I was old enough to remember Owen Arthur in the early days. Jerome, you will recall this, talking about how he had a bad stammer and how he had to overcome the stammer and what it took for him to overcome the stammer. And I say simply there, but for the grace of God goes I. So that when they taunted Eddie, Sandra would tell you that that only brought out a spirit that none of us knew was there. You know, they say that for a woman, patience is her best friend when it comes to getting even. But I think that they were wrong. I don't think that it is gender specific, because Eddie Hinson came to prove that he was prepared to bide his time. And bide his time he did. And Dennis Lowe and Donville Innes and Richard Seeley and Ronald Jones and all of them who would taunt him came to suffer at his well-prepared and laser-like attacks. Not personal, but holding them to account in a clinical and surgical way. We've all been told the stories of the birthday greetings. Eddie, I suspect that you possibly could go down in the Guinness Book of World Records as the one representative globally that has called the highest per capita number of constituents to wish them happy birthday. And it is, Chad, I don't envy you. Because when you practice people to certain things, the practice to certain things. So you got to up the ante whenever the time has come. But these are the things that have made you continue to hold, on behalf of this great party, the confidence of the people of St. James North. We don't take this for granted. And we don't take it for granted that this has, yes, been a constituency that has been finding favor with the Barbados Labour Party's representation for the majority of its existence. And this goes all the way back to Grantley Adams. May just have different names for the boundaries that have been drawn now. But this goes way back. I remember when I first came to public life, and Douglas Smith, who was Sir Grantley's driver, who lived 2 houses away from my constituency office there in Bush Hall, and who took me and helped shape me. And he would tell me about driving Sir Grantley down to the north, and that when you got down here, it was like if it was a different country. The way in which people embraced him, not just in St. Joseph, but in St. James and in St. Peter and St. Andrew. St. Lucy was always a little dicey, but still capable of recognizing that the Labour Party could offer good things to them. So I want to say, Eddie, as we say formally, thank you as a branch of this great party, that you have truly served well. We had the opportunity to say thank you in Parliament. We are now taking the opportunity to say thank you as a constituency branch. And I know that you had a lot to say this evening, and I thank you for taking the time and reflecting it. I also thank you for continuing what your predecessor did for you. And even though you had to face a nomination, Rawleyman let it be known to all the person in whom he had confidence to continue after him. And I can speak, and I continue to wish Rawl well. Rawl was one of the finest debaters in the post-independence history of this nation. And I will say to any young person, if you want to learn how to carry and comport yourself in Parliament, listen and go and read. Well, you may not have the chance to listen to much because I don't think the audiovisual aids that we have today were as readily available then. But read the debates from Rawleyman. But that you are now continuing in that tradition. Taking Chad for the better part of, 8 months? About a year since he came back. Around in a very measured and comfortable way, not in any way undermining your own ability to represent people, because you are still the Member of Parliament for the most part, but getting people accustomed to the idea that among us there is a man, a big man, who could fit into your big shoes, and ensuring that this transition has been as seamless for the Barbados Labour Party. When the General Secretary and the Chairman and I met with the branch executive of this branch, it became absolutely clear that even if we had intended to introduce anybody else to the equation, we would be doing so at our own risk. Because I have never seen a branch more resolute in determining that this is who they want to represent them. I have been in the Barbados Labour Party for a long time too. And I have been in National Council for a long time too. And I am yet to see a candidate command the utter and complete support of National Council in the way that Chad Blackman commanded it on Thursday night. It was amazing. Because as you know, in any council, you will normally get somebody wanting to play devil's advocate. We couldn't even find a devil's advocate Thursday night. Chad, I know what you do to them, but all. So that we have come to this point. And this evening, as I said, is first and foremost about saying thank you to Edmund Hinson, because that is how the Barbados Labour Party does its business. It is true that we have among us, or had among us, someone who did not know how to say thank you or goodbye, neither to the party nor to his constituents. But you and I all know that if you are in a neighborhood or you go to church and you see somebody else's child behaving bad, it reflects on who? Them, not you. It reflects on who? Them. Oh, what a slow this evening. With a slow this evening. But the point is that I therefore find it curious when that same person could want to speak about the manner in which we are choosing our candidate, because to the best of my knowledge, there are no WhatsApp messages going around from Eddie Hinson undermining the Labour Party or quarreling with the Labour Party for how Chad Blackman got chosen. I cannot say the same for the Democratic Labour Party. And I cannot say that this is a one-off case, because late last year, or it was earlier this year, in fact, in January, when they announced 15 candidates, there were WhatsApp messages and voice notes going around from people in St. Michael North and elsewhere complaining about the fact that there seems to be a new form of dictatorship. I can't talk because, the same people is pointing at me, but I know when they're pointing at me, they got 3 or 4 fingers pointing back at them. And if you wanted the evidence of it, you have it now. But I am not going to be distracted at all by them, because we have come too far as a party from where we inherited this government in 7 years ago. May 3 days after your election, my man, will be the 7th anniversary of this party in government. And those dates, therefore, were not chosen by accident. None. Lest we forget. And I will keep reminding us, because in the world in which we live today, it is too easy to fall back down the slope. It is too easy to find yourself in a position again where you're going to have to be digging from deep, deep, deep out of the hole. And that is why I have said all along that in spite of everything that we have done, the others in cabinet will tell you, let us walk with calm assurance and confidence. We can get there, but do not play wild and reckless shots. Don't go slashing outside the off stump, because that is not who we are. And we can't make it if we do it, because in this world, a hurricane could take us down or a flood could take us down. And if you ain't got nothing in the back to go and pull out, to hold you, to lift you up, what are you going to do? We went through $1 billion adjustment in the first 18 months. From May 2018 to December 2019. And if you hear me repeat it, you're going to hear me repeat it, because from Grantley Adams to Tom Adams to Owen Arthur, all taught us that politics is the what? The art of repetition. You mustn't let people forget. You mustn't stay down there, because living in the past, as the Democratic Labour Party is trying to do in the early 1970s of Errol Barrow and the 60s, will not do anything. But you mustn't forget, because that is going to help guide you in your decision making. So we went through a $1 billion adjustment. And there were others who said and told us, oh, you could do less and you're doing too much. And remember all that talk in the early days? There were equally others, like the former governor of the central bank, who said send home 5,000 people. And we found a way to do it. And over the course of this campaign, in conversations at the micro level, in spot meetings and in national meetings, we will find a way to also talk with you and remind you of some of these things. But if we had not done what we had done and built the confidence even in 18 months that we had built, can you imagine where we would be when COVID came? Can you? Because COVID brought another $1 billion structural adjustment. So that this country went through 2 $1 billion adjustments in the first 5 years of this government's existence. And in so doing, not only did we come through, but we made sure that as we went along, we were doing right by people. Chad Blackman, I asked to come back to help serve. Because I'm also very conscious that a lot of us have gray hair, and in some instances, the men no hair. I wasn't talking about you, Eddie, because as long as I've known you, you've been sporting that hairstyle. We're talking about some of the rest. And a party is always strongest when we keep refreshing, keep refreshing, keep refreshing, keep refreshing. And Chad had always impressed us as someone from a member of the Young Socialists, president of the Young Socialists, a CARICOM youth ambassador. His presence was always imposing. He was always mild-mannered. He was always humble. He was always willing to learn, always willing to read. All of the things that a party leader would admire in a member of a party. And therefore, when my eyes had to do so and look around, even though he was outside of Barbados geographically, I felt that there was an urgency for his return to this country. You know, 7 years ago when he was 35, many people asked me, and Jerome, why are you appointing a 35-year-old as ambassador to Geneva? WTO is there, and WIPO is there, and all of these UN agencies are there. And I smiled. I said, well, I suppose Owen Arthur appointed me as Minister of Education at 28. So that he's 7 years too late. But I knew then that in appointing him, I was appointing someone who would not only get the substance of diplomatic representation right, but he would also get the critical currency of diplomacy, which is building relationships with people, making sure that when you need them, that you can call on them and that they can help you lift the heavy weight irrespective of what the particular issue was. And Jerome will tell you as Minister of Foreign Affairs, not only did he do that, but in no time at all, we were able to command the presidency of UNCTAD, largely as a result of him and one or two others. And it may seem esoteric to many of you, but UNCTAD is the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. And all of this tariff talk now, and all of this trade talk now, Barbados is still president of UNCTAD today as we speak. But what is more important is that from the time UNCTAD started, the developing countries that were in charge of UNCTAD were countries like South Africa and Brazil, large developing countries. We became the smallest country, in fact, probably the only island ever to command the presidency of this. And therefore, when people talk and make people feel that it's only me that has got a relationship with people outside, don't turn a brush and shut up your mouth. Foolishness. We have a cabinet and a parliamentary party. Eddie served with distinction in the European Parliament and ACP joint parliamentary sessions. Following Sandra, working as minister with Jerome. And Chad was able, therefore, to help us land and to be able to help us manage the processes that Barbados has benefited from in terms of logistic studies, in terms of other aspects of trade, in terms of industrial development, diversification of this economy. All the things that we know may sound fancy and pretty up here, but if we don't get them right, you can't do the 12 roads and the 4 roads you get, Eddie, which is 16 roads together. Don't let me get that. And he get more than anybody else in the parliamentary party, you know. St. James North, but in fairness, he was correct. He had to get more. And I'm unapologetic about also a few others that have to get, because believe every word he said. When the Democratic Labour Party took office, it was a scorched earth policy for St. Michael Northeast, for St. James North, for St. Thomas, for St. George North, for Christchurch West. Those in particular received the worst. There was a road accident at Fort Canewood Hill in the middle of construction, left abandoned until we came back. Up by Cynthia Cross, by Browns Gap. Out that side, left, started, undone. And I can go on and on and on with the list. So I don't begrudge you, Eddie, the 16 roads that you get. But I say simply to the rest of the constituency and the country that unlike Bewitch and Elizabeth, for those who are old enough, you can't twiggle your nose and get a road. You have to have the funding. And you have to have the capacity. And we have done, and you have to have time. Because it takes time to do a road. And there will obviously be limits of capacity. But with God's grace and with your confidence, we will continue to do every single road in this country if we are given the chance over and over by you to put us here. Because we have not discriminated against one single constituency in this country. Not one. And even if it was an inclination, and people who know me know that I don't discriminate. But even if it was an inclination, the good people of the country made sure that for 2 successive elections that we had the confidence of every single constituency. I don't predict. I work. And that's what I want you all to do. Because I have given you, and I will have a chance, I'm speaking to him, speaking of him, to the branch this evening. And over the course of this campaign, I will have a chance to speak of you to the people of St. James North and to the country of Barbados. But this evening, it is to the branch of the Barbados Labour Party. And I want simply to say to you, and I see many of you have started to wear his shirts already, I have never seen a ballot box open with a vote. First thing to do is shake it, and then do what? Turn it over. And therefore, there shall be no arrogance. There shall be no complacency. There shall be no inclination to believe that, oh, Eddie win by X amount and Chad can win by Y amount. I said the same thing when we had the by-election in St. George North, when Tony took over from Glenn Clark. And I say the same thing again now. And I want you all to fall in line and to literally recognize that we don't command elections. We earn the victory of the people because we earn first and foremost their confidence. That is what I want this Barbados Labour Party constituency branch and the wider party to do. And you have been exhibiting it by going into every community and going, I hope, at every house. The wider party will be there to work with you, my dear, in this context of a by-election. But the branch itself must take the lead with you as the candidate. I want to announce this evening that I've asked my deputy, Sandra Bradshaw, to be the campaign manager. And you have already seen that she has led from in front today. While I was looking at some of the information and data sent to me by the campaign this afternoon, I happened to look across and saw CBC showing all of y'all canvassing this evening, and I smiled to myself because this is what representation is about. But I expect that along with the General Secretary and the Chairman of the party and myself as political leader and all of the rest of you, that you will take guidance, yes, but you will help us lead. I heard Eddie and Chad talk about local knowledge, and local knowledge is critical. Last weekend, I was down here with both of them walking around in Western and understanding. And you know, life is funny because as the campaign goes on and as we get into districts, I will explain different things because, as I said, you can't do everything at once, but this government has done a lot and will continue to do more. And stabilizing this economy. And there will be a point in this campaign where there will have to be an economic discussion because it's not about arithmetic or economics. It is about giving us the cash to care and the cash to do and the cash to make a difference to all of you. There will be discussions about the social systems that we inherited, that Queen Victoria would recognize if you brought her from the grave. And that Kirk Humphrey, who lives in this constituency too, just above you on the other side, where you're close enough that you're going to have to be treated as an adopted child. But he is leading the efforts to change how we deal with our social relations. And from the environmental side, Adrian Ford and others have been dealing because we know the extent to which the coastal erosion on the west coast of Barbados has compounded the opportunities and made it very difficult for a number of people all across the entire west coast. And there will be a time for me to outline what Ryan Strawn outlined in the budget this year with respect to our going to establish a new Barbados Oceans and Coastal Authority, because we recognize that in the same way MTW must deal with the roads each and every day, we must have an entity dealing with the beaches each and every day, because this is how we earn our living in this country. And we will have a time to talk about some other things, Chad. I have no doubt that education will be key in this campaign as a Minister of Education. And the person who is running against you, I think, has made it her business to become a town crier, a political town crier, for everything that goes wrong in a school. And there's nothing wrong with that, but when it is being done for political purposes as opposed for the substance of what you're trying to achieve, then something becomes wrong for that. But that tonight is not that night. Rest assured that this will be an interesting campaign. What I will say is that I am a little concerned, and this has nothing to do with politics now, and I have to say this, and I want to say to the teachers of this country that the same calm assurance that I ask of my cabinet and of the people who are representatives in my party and my government, I ask of you, because I have been around for a little while, and I have never known that you take action while still at the table having discussions. And that industrial discussions require that if we are still at the table talking, let us talk. But to go and start the process of organized industrial activity while we are still at the table, as recent as this week, as recent as the day before the industrial action was to take place, causes every person who is watching to ask, what is the motivation? Owen Arthur used to tell us a story about Alma Paris and Waldo Ramsey. When Waldo Ramsey went down into the branch in St. Peter and all of a sudden wanted to run, and he doing this and he doing that and he talking this and he talking that. And Alma Paris, after whom the school is named, distinguished educator, got up very quietly and at the back of the room. I see Noah Lynch and Jerome smiling because them heard this story about 20 times too. And she said, Dr. Ramsey, you are talking like if you want to say something. What is it that you want to say? And I have to say that when I see the BUT, and when I see Felicia Dujon, And then you tell me that this has nothing at all to do with the Democratic Labour Party, but yet, Sandra, who runs against you? The first vice president of the Barbados Union of Teachers. And Kirk, who is running against you? Nathaniel Boyce, an executive member of the Barbados Union of Teachers. And I might perhaps go on if I wanted to talk about who is projected to run as well, but no name, no lockup. I learned that you just give time, enough time, and it can come out, it can come out, it can come out. But I want to say honestly, why I'm totally and completely befuddled is not only have discussions not broken down, but the ministry has made it clear that there are administrative issues that have to be resolved, but that we were never against restoring the terms leave. Because this is the same government that is also working with the nurses. Jerome would tell you. But you can't just come, because imagine if every teacher wanted a terms leave at the same time. What would happen? Who you would got to teach? And imagine if more wanted than you can afford to pay in a particular financial year, because you are talking about over $6 million. It's not 6 cents. So that there must be a respect for process. And I ask you, if it didn't happen in 2013, 2014, when it took it away, 2013, 2014, and it didn't happen in 2014, 2015, 2016, and come right down the line. For 11 years, I understand that it has taken long. Don't get me wrong. But what I also understand is that children have an exam to take. And other exams are going on not only at the primary level, but at the secondary level. And particularly, if any of us remember what parents are like. I spent 7 years as Minister of Education, so I know it well. Parents get nervous over their children in a way that is not sometimes even rational. And you get that. And you have to be big enough to step back and understand that and to give them enough space to accommodate that kind of concern and anxiety. So what is likely to happen when your child, less than 2 weeks before the common entrance, missed 2 critical days? What are you going to do to them this long weekend? You're going to make that child sit down. You say, come, teacher wasn't there, come, I got to carry you through this. But you run the risk that the parent might carry the child through something, teaching them a different way from the teacher, and confusing the child at the very time when the child needs to be able to remain focused and to stay engaged with what they know. Because it is at this point, and don't get tired, that's why we have to have educational transformation, that we still have a system that respects muscle memory and learning by rote. That's a fact. And that's why it's so important for us. And that's why I'm so disappointed, and we can talk about it in this campaign. Because we invited the same Ralph Thorne and the same Felicia Duchamp and all of them to have an engagement when Kay McConney and Chad both were there, and Sandra husbands. And what did they do? They agreed to a date. And you can hear me say it over and over, because it is wrong, it is wrong, it is wrong. We agreed to a date. We arranged to have the private dining room in Parliament so that the noise from the other members, Sante would tell you, would not affect us. The chief education officer come in and put the presentation on the television so that she can carry them through every single slide and get their input. And on the day, in the same way that he didn't have the decency to tell the people of Christchurch South or the Barbados Labour Party or me that he was gone, he didn't even have the decency to say we ain't coming to lunch. And when I came downstairs and saw him sitting at the back and a whole bunch of the Dems around him eating food, and all of them eating food long before the Labour Party people for that matter. It's a fact. I said, but Ralph, the others inside there waiting, you can bring the food and come in the room. Because you're only walking from here to the back of this veranda here. He said, no, we're not coming. We can't do it today no more. I said, excuse me? He said, no, we can't do it today no more. I said, well, Lord, you could have tell me something. I said, so when? He said, no, we'll talk to your PS. I said, my PS ain't got nothing to do with this, Rav. I carry you behind the speaker's chair and talk to you directly when I send a message. And Maxine McLean was standing up, hovering over him. And Felicia Dujon and he were sitting down at the table eating food. And there's a government that wants to share with you and hear from you about where to carry the education system, because I said to him, I said, Ralph, there are two things in this country that politics must not divide us on because this country is too small. Education and crime policy. You can add health to that too. But I was making the point that yes, the government has a commanding majority. And yes, the government can govern. But we want to engage because we want to make sure that the changes which will inevitably run not 2 years or 4 years or 5 years, the changes are going to run at least a generation, which has to be 10 to 14 years minimum, that we have a compact, an agreement. As some countries that have done well, when you see them do well, it is because there are certain things that everybody agrees are non-touchable. You don't touch it, untouchable. And this was one of them. So I can understand that people might be a little sore in pointing out the obvious. It's too much of a coincidence. If it is not a coincidence, show us that it is not a coincidence. And meet us to discuss the things that we need to discuss. But with respect to continued industrial action, I say to you that this is a country that has both government and labor and, where's Colin, and the private sector serving on the highest international labor body in the world, on the governing body. This candidate that the Barbados Labour Party is putting up came immediately from the International Labour Organization. That was his last job, making a difference for the quality of workers across the Americas. And I ask you to remember that this is not a party that has just got up and say, we're talking about this for the sake of it. The first thing this party did when we came in was to give a 5% wage increase to all public servants who had not had anything for 8 years. And since then, we have done 3 salary increases. Since then, we have started the process of regrading of posts in the public service. All of these things will cost money. So how do you have a government that does all of this, that in 2020 said, and one will come again, that every person acting for more than 3 years should be appointed, and that if there are anomalies, we have a process set then with the Governor General, now the President, and over 900 appeals were done and heard by Her Excellency to make sure that when we first broached this idea, the public servants told me, no, Prime Minister, you can't do this can do this, and this can do that. I said, set up the appeal process. More than 3,000 people benefited immediately from appointments in this country as a result of that legislation. This is the same government that saw labor and workers, that introduced a minimum wage, and that is on the cusp now of seeing an increase in those rates. And that in this budget, in addition to the increase that you will see, Ryan Strawn announced that every year it will go up by 2%, and that we will then deal with any anomaly every few years. This is a government that sees workers. This is a government that introduced the Labor Clauses Act so that people who get in contracts, concessions, and tax benefits have been told that you must behave in a way that does not undermine the integrity of decent work. If not, you will put at risk those concessions. So that I feel that it is time for calm assurance. Because when you look at the behavior of the government, when you look at the record of the government, when you look at the agreement of the government with the court case, but when you understand that this is a responsible government and that you can't just go and agree to things without knowing how much it's going to cost. You can't just go and agree to things without knowing how you're going to execute and keep things stable and level, because if too many people at one particular school want and none of others, but that the others who don't want don't teach the same subjects that the ones that want, there's so many combinations and permutations that can get you in trouble. If we were going to even implement exactly what was taken away, it would be a little problematic. But the union is asking for changes. And to the best of my knowledge, they're asking for it to go from 250 teachers to 300 teachers. So all of these things have to be analyzed by the public servants. Because if not, when it comes then to regrading or salary increases, you find then that you're going to hobble yourself how? There is nobody, and I said it at the beginning when we were in opposition, that I believe that whenever we get the chance, we are going to ensure that the workers of this country, particularly in the public service, are treated properly. That's why you've had 3 wage increases. That's why you've had all the things that I've just pointed out. And that's why the regrading, last one done, was by the Barbados Labour Party in 2007. This kids don't tie up, man. So that if there is a disagreement between the BUT and the Ministry of Public Service and the Ministry of Education, sort it out inside the room. If you can't sort it out, kick it to the Chief Labour Officer. If the Chief Labour Officer can't sort it out, kick it to the Minister of Labour. If the Minister of Labour can't sort it out, it comes inevitably to me as the final court of appeal. But I have said enough all along to tell you that this is not a substantive disagreement. This is a disagreement on administrative processes that are necessary to execute, and that can't be overlooked. And if it takes some time, do not ignore that fact. The majority of time cannot be as a result of us. But I go further. Let us, even if you want to do it and to take industrial action, take it with the exam results, or take it in the summer, or take it when the new term opens in September. But don't take it this term, I beg you do. Don't take it this term. Because all the rest of us can recover in a bruising match. But when a child, especially one going to face common entrance, or one going to face CXC exams, or CSEC, these are the things that may determine whether that child continues to go up or down, or however which way they move. And I therefore ask and appeal to all educators for calm assurance on their part, for them to have a calm assurance that the right thing will be done. But as we work our way to that end, do not let us allow our children to suffer. So my friends, we have come to this point, and tonight, as I said, is the closing of one chapter, the closing of one era, and the beginning of another. And just as we did between Roll and Eddie, I expect the branch to be just as seamless in their support and transfer, and you have already assured me of that. And I say simply to all of the rest of us, there is now work to be done. This is not a party that is triumphant in its work. This is a party that is laser-like and focused. And that is why we have commanded the support and confidence of the Barbadian people. We will never be perfect because the only people, thank you, the only people who are perfect are those who can claim divinity, and that is the Lord. All of the rest of us, at some point, will fall short. We do not know everything, and we have never claimed to. And we are not all powerful, and we've never claimed to. But we have committed to doing the best that we can do and being the best that we can be at all stages. And I have every confidence that over the course of the next 3.5 weeks, that we will persuade the members of St. James North that in Chad Blackman, we have brought a man who Barbados and Barbadians have raised, and raised in a way that reflects the best of our characteristics, the best of our virtues, and that as he moves around, get to hold him and claim him as one of your own. You could get a hold. You could get a hold. And if you can't hold around, you can hold up. So I can teach you how it's going to do it. But I have every confidence that you will understand why I had no compunction in asking, yes, this big man to come home. But equally, why the branch executive and then subsequently the National Council did not at any stage exhibit anyone expressing any concern or objection to your being here. Chad, it is an overwhelming level of support that you have from this party. I ask you to treat it with the respect with which it is given. I ask you to remember that it must continually be earned. And I ask you to go forward and represent this party with the confidence, the humility, the creativity, but the discipline that we know you are capable of. And if we can do that day by day by day, then I look forward to us meeting wherever that will be on the 21st of May and launching for you a period of representation in your career that I have every confidence will be stellar. God bless you. God bless you, Eddie Hinson. God bless Eddie, your wife and your daughter, and your son who you are going to spend a few days with. We will miss you for a few days, but they say absence makes the heart grow fonder, so when you come back, I hope you're ready to do double duty. And I simply say to the rest of St. James North, Sandra will be leading the daily charge, and I expect you to fall in line and let us get on with the business of representing the good people of St. James North in the Barbados Labour Party again. Good night and God bless you all.
Don't worry. You just get your